You two then on.
Good evening, everyone. It's 7 o'clock by my watch, so we'll make a start. Can I just ask that any members or officers in physical attendance with an electronic device to mute it to avoid any feedback, and also any participants that are joining us remotely, could you please keep your camera and microphone off unless you wish to speak, as that can affect the quality of the meeting. This meeting is being live webcast and the recording stays on the council's website. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Hybrid Western Area Committee meeting, including any visiting members and members of the public that may be attending remotely. I'd like to also advise that the following officers are in attendance this evening from Swale Borough Council. We have Jay Jenkins, who just momentarily stepped out of the room, who's our Leisure and Technical Manager. And we have Policy Engagement Officer, Janet Dahl. Also, just a big welcome to our representatives of our parish councils. I believe we have Councillor Clark, who's online, joining us from Bredcar Parish Council. We've got Councillor Adicott from Hartlip, Councillor Tolhurst from Iwade, and Councillor Roberts from Tunstall. So welcome to all of you. I don't think we've got our KCC councillor online. Not at the moment, so Councillor Lehman isn't online at the moment. He might join us a little bit later. If I could just remind people, if they wish to speak, just to raise their hand and I'll invite them to speak in turn. Could you just state your name and organisation that you represent when you speak, just for anyone obviously listening remotely. And likewise, anyone who's attending remotely, if you could please mute your microphones unless you wish to speak, and then indicate on the IM if you wish to speak. And just to say, any members of the public that are online, if you're using the IM inappropriately, you may be removed from the meeting. Okay, so just moving on to agenda item 1, which is our emergency evacuation procedure. So just going to read out the following statement. So please be aware of the evacuation procedures to follow in the event of an emergency. There is no scheduled test of the fire alarm during this meeting. If the alarm does sound, please leave the building quickly without collecting any of your possessions, using doors signed as fire escapes, and assemble in the car park at the side of the building. Await instructions before re-entering the building. Should anyone require assistance in evacuating the building, please make the Swale Borough Council officers aware of any special needs that suitable arrangements may be made in the event of an emergency. So is there anyone who would need any assistance? No? Brilliant, thank you. Agenda item 2, apologies for absence. Just hand over to Janet.
Yes, we have a few apologies this evening. Councillor James Hunt, Councillor Alan Horton, Councillor Mike Baldock, Councillor Roger Clark, and Councillor Monique Bonnet, although Monique attend remotely later on. I also have some apologies from parish councils. So Bapchild, Alden and Upchurch have all sent apologies this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, agenda item 3, if we got any declarations of interest? No? Okay, brilliant. And then we'll move on to agenda item 4, which is the minutes from our previous meeting. Would members agree the minutes of the meeting held on the 1st of December 2022 as a correct record? That's minutes numbers 466 to 474.
Yeah,
agreed? Thank you. Okay, then agenda item 5, we have Kent County Council's Community Services Consultation. So KCC have launched a consultation on their proposals for their community services. The consultation proposes changes to the way that KCC uses their buildings to deliver some of their community services, and they invite feedback on that proposal as part of this consultation, and the deadline is the 26th of March 2023. The link in the agenda takes you to the 113-page consultation document, along with information about drop-in events. Just for anyone listening remotely, those drop-in events, there's 2 that are going to be occurring. So Monday, the 27th of February, from 10 AM to 1 PM, and that's Sheppey Gateway at Sheerness Library. And then there is a second one on Thursday, the 23rd of February from 4 till 8 p.m. and that's at Milton Court Children's Centre. So just to make everyone aware of those events. You will have seen as you came in this evening, there's a separate document which is outlining the buildings that are affected in Swale. So you will have a copy of that. And really just for this item, it's a case of having a look and see if there's any that you want to, or any comments you would like to raise now that we can then feed back to KCC directly from our meeting, or and just generally to hopefully encourage yourselves and parish councils to take part in the consultation just to really raise awareness of it. So just hand over to you. Is there any in particular or any comments in particular you'd like to feedback at this stage? When I looked at it myself, I thought obviously the one that really stood out as probably being in the Western area was the Grove Park Children's Centre in Sittingbourne. So I don't know if there's any comments in particular in relation to that. That's the.
Thank you, Chairman. And that was the one that stood out for me because it's, you know, quite a central location and, you know, quite easy to get to. And I just feel that, you know, the closure of that is obviously going to increase people having to go by car, which is going to increase congestion. And that it's not as if we haven't got enough congestion in the town at the moment. So I think that will be a real loss actually to us. And if that can be rethought or somewhere, you know, much closer than the nearest distances that they're thinking of, I think that would be my preference.
Thank you. Councillor Palmer?
I do tend to agree with Councillor Hampshire there. I think they're trying to say we are making these cuts or we are making these changes to reduce net zero or carbon emissions, but actually I think some of the cuts will actually increase it because of what you've just said. So I think, yes, KCC will say we have saved, but generally all round it will, I think it have an increase. I have actually myself as an individual, because I think there's some very concerning areas in there. I think the youth provision we've all moaned about, and as Western Area Committee, we're trying to support it more in the local community. And I think the drive to me seems to be that they're going to put more and more of their youth provision online. You can, as you read the document, you can. That's something I've picked up on. So I'm quite concerned about that. But I have made a response as an individual. But I did feel that even so, there's 100 odd pages. That sometimes the information it left you vague to what actually their intentions are, and so it's not a very clear document to exactly what they're going to do. But it is a consultation to find out what the responses are, and I would urge parishes, if need be, to make their own response, because I think the more they close and put down, then either people are going to try and travel in, the bus services aren't there, and a lot of the people who use these services tend to need help and maybe not even have a car. So if they close them and it's further to go, they might not even be able to get there because of a bus. So they will be further disadvantaged by some of the changes that are proposed. Thank you.
Councillor Stevens?
Councillor Palmer's just said really what I was going to say. It's the transport. A lot of these families won't have cars, and it's just getting to a place that's much further away, much more inconvenient. I feel the same, that they're not actually going to bother trying to get there. And taxi fares are well out the reach of many of the families that are using those centres. And the one, I know it's not Western Area, but it just seems that they're doing beach fields. When they're putting so much money into beach fields with the Levelling Up Fund, it seems a crazy one to be chosen, especially as it's so central with GMS.
Thank you. And as you say, in such a high area of deprivation, so transport wise. I think we've got those comments, so if we can feed those back on behalf of the as our committee. Is there anything else before we move on from that? Is okay with that one? Okay, we'll move on then to agenda item 6, which is our matters arising. So these are kind of our ongoing progress on things that we've discussed over the last few meetings. So we'll go through them kind of an item at a time, just kind of highlight any key parts for it really. So first item on there is the youth provision in the villages. So you will see in Appendix 1 that we've had an update from the organisation that we gave funding to, Vibe, that have started to do some outreach work within the Western area. So just some key bits from there. See, the work started in November 2022 and was led by Adam Kinley and a team of the Vibe youth workers. They've completed their first 6 weeks at Christmas and are currently in the middle of their second 6-week provision. The Vibe Youth Van has been out to as many areas as possible, so that included the Meads, Iwade, Newington, Upchurch, Hartlett, Borden, Lower Howstow, Bredgar, Tunstall, Bodlesham, Milstead, Bobbin and Bapchild. They've made some good connections with young people in Iwade, Newington and the Meads and Borden, and they've advertised on social media where their van will be. The team have set up some youth meetups for this term in Iwade, Newington and the Meads, and they're going to continue to add some others in. They've focused on recording and reporting the opinions and feedback of young people in the area, which is what we were asking them to do. And we're going to have a report from them hopefully by March. So obviously we can distribute that to members once we have that from them. Generally, the feedback so far has been that the young people they've spoken to feel overlooked or isolated, living in the villages and unable to attend the youth provision in Sittingbourne. What they want is somewhere for older young people to hang out and for the provision of older youth clubs. So that kind of tailored for obviously that older age range. I think the younger provision is pretty good in a lot of the villages with different parks and different activities, but the older young people that are kind of suffering with lack of provision. What Vibe have said, obviously they've started this work just before Christmas and obviously doing the second set now, not the most hospitable weather for them. So what they're thinking they will probably do is the final 6 weeks, they're going to move until the weather is a bit warmer to hopefully increase the potential for engagement with young people. That's kind of the summary so far. Just if there's any comments from anyone really on that so far. No? Okay with that one? All right then, so we'll move on to our second item on there, which is the Bredgar and Hartlett conservation area reviews. So the heritage consultant has agreed to undertake the work within the allocated budget, and then the conservation and design team shall be organising a site walkabout with the consultant and key stakeholders soon. We've got the final document will be issued by the consultant by the end of May 2023, and then that's going to be followed by the public consultation hopefully soon afterwards. We have checked with the Director of Resources and they've advised that as the work is already commissioned and ongoing, and we've committed to pay for the work, therefore it can be paid when the work is completed at the end of May 2023, and that's not going to affect, obviously, with the electoral cycle and when we have to spend our money by. So we've double checked that and that should all be fine. So I don't know if there's any comments on any of that part before we move on. Oh, hold on. So Councillor Palmer first.
I mean, it might be in there somewhere, but can they make sure when they do the walkabout and visit these locations that they involve people like the parish council, so that, because sometimes they have far more information, and it's a useful resource to have on board. Thank you.
Yeah, and we've got Councillor Clark online, I think.
Yes, it's good news that this is all being going forward as planned. Thank you to everyone there. Just to say that on the parish council we are ready to support the activity, so we will look forward to hearing from them and try and do our best to provide some local input. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll pass both of those comments back on to officers. So thank you very much for that. Then moving on to point 3 on there, we've got the walking and cycling project. So you can see the latest update from Adrian on Appendix 2. Just one thing to really add to that. So you'll see in his kind of progress report that the Meads Milton Trail, he said, has had to be dropped as the walk through the residential streets was too much through residential streets and they couldn't find a way to make that attractive. I've seen some emails between Adrian and Councillor Hunt that's kind of followed that. And they are going to relook at this. So Councillor Hunters and Adrian have got a meeting booked on the 24th of February, and they're going to have another look around the area. So that potentially might not be dropped. So there might be that one. Hopefully, will still maybe be able to be included. And then obviously the kind of key thing really from there is that once we're at that kind of the next stage is completed, committee members will be contacted when the maps leaflets are ready to print, and asked how many copies each leaflet they would like to distribute, so from homes and businesses. And if there's a budget remaining, obviously they're looking at an app to create the photo walks of the trail as well. So obviously that seems to be moving on quite well now. Don't know if there's any other comments, Councillor Stephen?
Yeah, and there will be the other resource in the High Street, because the routes go past the media centre, which is actually now this community information hub. So that they have the flyers there as well.
Okay. Councillor Hampshire?
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, I think the only thing that I've sort of picked up on is the walking route within the Meads, and the comment from the officers being it's not attractive in a residential area. And I think the challenge for this council will be when new housing applications and that come forward, how we actually make those environments an attractive place, not just to live, but to actually socialise and do that amenity that we want. So I think that's a lesson that we need to learn from, and make sure that when we do have future plan applications and that come forward, and when we're thinking about how the local plan is going to look, that we have that kind of in the forefront of our mind, how we have nice, attractive places to live.
So thank you very much. I think that's all I can see wanting to speak on that one. So we'll move on then to the bus services. I won't read through it, but you can see the letter that we had back from KCC in Appendix 3. Obviously following the comments that were raised from a resident of Bredgar when we were out in Bredgar Village Hall a couple of meetings ago now. Obviously we sent the letter from us, from myself, following that, when that issue was raised, and you've seen KCC's response. So unless there's any comments on that one, I'll move on. Okay. So then item 5 on there, refurbishment of King George's toilets. So that work is planned to start in January, February, so it may have already started. I believe so. That's for Steve.
I haven't been down there, so I might have a little look at the weekend.
A little wander and check. Obviously they consulted with Councillor Stephen about the tile choice and things, so that you can see that in the update there. That they've decided within that consultation, they've got the flat white tiles, and then they've got the double band of grey to kind of break up that just complete whiteness in there. But hopefully that, as it said, January, February, hopefully that's ongoing and will be completed soon, ready for the summer, which is excellent. Sorry,
just a query. I noticed on the Sitting Wall committee that they're asking for money with the LTA to upgrade the courts at King George's. I just wonder if anybody knew if that timing was linking with the toilet, how it all sort of. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, I can update you on that one, excuse me. There is final paper going to the Community Committee on the 1st of March, which is to lay out the conditions of that partnership and agreement. There is a financial impact for the local authority as part of that partnership agreement with the LTA, but we are positive that will be will go through on that particular date, and then we can start the work in earnest with them, filling out the various paperwork that we need to do. So the idea is that there will be a reinforced security access with a key code system, online booking, and the courts themselves will be refurbished, new equipment and so on. So we are awaiting that decision on the 1st of March. Yeah.
thank you. Okay, so next item on there, item 6, the flooding in the rural areas. So following our last meeting, I spoke with the chair of the Environment Committee. He's then consulted, I think, with Mr Clifford, just to see kind of the correct way to kind of go about this, because he was happy to write the letter from himself, but he felt that going to the Environment Committee itself to then get their endorsement would then give a bit more weight to that. So that's the route that we're going down with that. So the chair is going to take it to the Environment Committee to get them to hopefully endorse that, and then to write to central government following that. So that's kind of in progress. Then item 7. Oh, sorry, Councillor Hampshire. Sorry, I missed you.
That's okay, Chair. I mean, I can understand the rationale behind wanting to take it to the Environment Committee because, you know, it's not just something that affects the Western Area Committee, it will affect other areas within the borough. But that said, I think this committee would actually have a greater input in how that issue affects this particular area than, say, the Environment Committee. And I don't see why one is seen as being better than the other. I don't know why we, as a committee, could write ourselves in addition to a letter come from the Environment Committee that deals with the whole swell. That's just my thought. What I don't want to see is a dilution of the real impacts within our area that we represent occurring because it is going to a much larger committee.
Councillor Stephen?
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. It'd be nice that if every chair from all the 4 area committees could actually write their concerns and then add it maybe to the environment one, so that everybody's, like you say, doing specific problems in each area.
Yeah, I don't see any problem. I think from the last meeting we said to refer it, didn't we, to the Environment Committee, but I don't see any reason why we can't do both. And perhaps make a suggestion to the other chairs as well, whether they would like to do that for the other area committees. Okay, that's fine. We can do that. Thank you, Councillor Hampshire. The next item there was reduction in police community support officers. So Councillor Hall on our behalf raised that at the CSP meeting that he attended in January and confirmed the PCSOs that are currently attached to the Western area, which you can see kind of in the update there. Obviously they're covering larger areas than they previously had. So whereas, you know, previously Lower House, so Bob and I would have had a distinct PCSO. Now obviously that PCSO is covering also Newington, Hartlip, Upchurch. So they're spread across a much wider area. And also, as you can see there, Councillor Hall has advised that their numbers are likely to reduce further. And there's no current plan for recruitment. Obviously, that he raised our concerns with regards to that at the meeting. So I think as far as what we've asked him to do, that's been completed. It's just a case, I think, of still continuing to raise that as an issue that we're obviously all concerned about. Is there any further comments from members in particular about that they'd like to make? Okay, Councillor Hampshire first, and then.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, yeah, okay, so the PCSOs that may be being reduced, but it's the case of, well, what is the alternative? And if the alternative is more police officers on the streets, then is that a negative? You know, is that a negative thing? I don't know. I think what would be better is to try to get an understanding as to how they see the policing model going about in the future. If it's more police officers and more neighbourhood policing initiatives being taken, then to me that may be better than, you know, simply having more PCSOs, because obviously they have more powers, they have a wider remit in what they can do and look into. So I think it's trying to put it in a context and not just looking at the headline of, well, it's a reduction in PCSOs, so that's a bad thing. It's okay, it's a reduction in PCSOs, but as a result of that, this is actually how we're going to do it, and we're going to get more of this, and that actually could be more beneficial. And I think that's perhaps what's not coming through clearly enough in the little verbal update that we've just received.
Councillor, I will come to you, Councillor Palmer, but Councillor Roberts, I think, had a hand up next.
It's Councillor Richards.
Oh, sorry.
Just to say that at the last Swale Area Committee for Calc, which unfortunately Richard and Mike couldn't come to, we had a presentation by the Chief Inspector, the new Chief Inspector for Swale, and her deputy were there, and they'd only seen Larissa the week before, and they explained all about the new model for policing and how it would fit in. There's obviously going to be quite an issue on the transition, but actually it looked really good news. So you know, Graham was there too, so I want to comment. So maybe that will supersede the situation. But it was a very impressive presentation.
Councillor Adcock?
Yes, the presentation did sound very promising, and it sounds as though we're going back to community policing again, which I welcome. I mean, at the moment, I'm not quite sure what PCSOs do. I've never seen a job description. But our last PCSO covered the village for 18 months. We saw her at one parish council meeting, but I haven't been able to find anyone who saw her at the village at any other time. Kirsty Lind is now our PCSO, and I wrote her a welcoming letter when she joined us in, I think it was November, but we haven't seen her since. She said to me, email me at any time if there's anything you want to raise. So I did that, and my email was blocked. It was a perfectly polite email. So, you know, I don't know what's happening. I went shopping at a well-known centre in Sittingbourne last week, and there were 3 PCSOs on together on the door, and they were trying to get people to sign up for Community Voice. And the person I was with, I went to put things in the car, and the person I was with said, could you please tell us, is this connected with Neighbourhood Watch? And the PCSO she spoke to said, I'm not sure, and called the other 2 over, and they weren't sure whether it was connected with Neighbourhood Watch either. Not very impressive. I shall be raising that at the next CULT meeting when Chief Inspector attends. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Palmer.
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, I think for a lot of people, PCSOs are the only visible reports of the police that they see. And I think a lot of people are worried that they do go. I do agree with Councillor Hampshire that they don't have the far-ranging powers of a warranted police officer. PCSOs are classed as civilian staff, and I think the trouble is there's been such a drive to say we've got to get 20,000 police officers because we cut 22,000 or whatever. There was massive cuts to the police, which damaged the police quite badly. There was a massive drive to try to rebalance that number, but the police are getting rid or not replacing civilian staff. So just before Christmas, 30 warranted police officers had to be drafted into control because they were so short of civilian staff in control. And there are other areas of the police, forensic side, digital forensics, and other areas where they are being cut back, and yet warranted police officers aren't doing them tasks. That doesn't need a highly qualified police officer to do that task. So sometimes it's a false economy to say we need more police, we need more warranted police officers who then go around and do a job that could be done by a civilian at a lesser rate. And that's the trouble when you start setting targets, that there are a lot of police officers who are perhaps doing jobs that don't put them out on the front line. I agree that the Chief Constable has recently said, and he's been quite open about it, he does favour more community policing, and I believe his new model will be rolled out in June. But I still feel that the police have suffered such a cut, and they're under so much pressure from, there's been an actual increase in the population of Kent. So even if you increase the numbers to what they were in 2012, there are still less police per population. And if you cut the PCSOs, who are quite often the eyes and ears of the police on the ground. And the other issue is, and this is where perhaps I've tried it in my parish, but I don't, it's awkward to get people, but you must report all crime. If you don't report all crime, the police will say, well, there's no crime in Newington, very few crime. But when you speak to people on the ground, they've had things nicked from their garages, from their sheds, they've had their cars damaged, but a lot of people say, I just can't be bothered to report it. I even tried the online form and it took me 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and I couldn't work out what the questions they really wanted to do. There's a malaise about reporting crime, so I think crime's vastly underreported. All we can try and do is try to encourage people to report it. If it's an emergency, dial 999, but normally 101. Is that the right number? I'll keep getting confused with that in the NHS now, but or online. But I know I've gone through the online reporting procedure and it's not an easy process. So if you're not, and I'm quite familiar with using computers, so if you're not familiar with that system, it is a bit cumbersome. But I agree with what Councillor Hampshire says in some respect, that a warranted police officer will have more effect. I hope the Chief Constable is as good as his words and that they do go out and put more police into the community. And we can only judge him in June if he does or doesn't, I suppose. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stephen.
Yeah, it's a positive observation. Spending a lot of time down at the town centre recently, there has been a change since the new people have come in, and the police have visited every premises, they've chatted to us all. They are visual because we've been actually able to observe them going up and down. So there is a much higher police presence, certainly in the town centre, which is great news for all the residents of every area. Because we were having a lot of trouble of antisocial behaviour, and it seems to have calmed down, so it does work.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, we'll move on then to item 8. So this is just an update. So we agreed from our funding £10,000 to be split between Swale Food Bank and the Bus Shelter Food Bank. So we've asked for some updates from both of those. So you can see the update there from the Swale Food Bank. So that so far they've spent of their £5,000, 1,542 and 87 pence. And that has helped 93 people across the whole of the Western area. And the busiest wards there you can see in Newington, Hartlip and Upchurch. The Bus Shelter Food Bank have also come back to us. It's not in your report, but they've come back to us, I think, yesterday. So obviously we know that they had some issues with their location with regards to Phoenix House. So they've managed to so far just do food, 4 food parcels. But now the issues with Phoenix House have been resolved. They're hoping that that's obviously now able to upscale. So they obviously had a bit of an issue in terms of meeting demand just to start with, but hopefully that will now they seem to say that's been resolved, so hopefully we'll see that number increase moving forward. Any comments on that before we move on? No. So then item 9 on there. So this was our alternative heating products. And again, at our last meeting, I think it was now, we agreed to allocate the remaining funding that we had. So that was £4,523.13 to the Fuel and Water Home Advisor Service. You will see on your tables today when you came in, there's a little envelope which I think has got the leaflets in. So you've got some leaflets there that you can distribute and circulate. We've also got a PDF version of that, which Janet's happy to share if that would be easier, so we can put that on kind of parish council websites and Facebook pages and share on your own Facebook pages.
If any of the parish councils would like a stock of the hard copies of the leaflets, please let me know and I can send them to you. Or I've got them here as well, so you can take some away as well if you need a meeting.
Yeah. So we've got all of those really. So we can get would people want the PDF circulated as well? Yeah. Okay. We can get the PDF circulated and then that can be shared obviously online a lot easier, and obviously you've got the hard copies there as well. Is there any other comments or feedback we like on that one? No? Okay. Item 10, you can see that was the Rose Hill and Meads Woodland Management and Work Plans. So the funds have been transferred to the Rose Hill Woodland Fens Group. That has already had its funding transferred. And we're just waiting for the Meads Woodland Fens Group to have their bank account set up properly, and then we can hopefully get that transferred across. So that's just the only hold up there. Councillor Hampshire.
Thank you, Chairman. I noticed it says that it's agreed that a borough councillor will sit on each friends group. Has the committee or the council decided how that's to be determined? Like, is it going to be like the annual appointments that we have at annual council, or will it be restricted to just those councillors that represent actually the wards where these particular attractions are based?
I think we'll have to seek advice on that one. I can't 100% answer that one. I know at the moment, obviously, where Councillor Baldock was involved with that first group, he's on representing on there, and I think Councillor Hunt, where he was involved in the other one, that's just kind of organically arisen, but we'll obviously seek clarification for moving forward from that.
I mean, that to me makes sense because of where they're located, they are borough councillors for those areas, but it's just making sure that in future, whoever the borough councillors for those areas are, you know, basically have the ability to represent those community assets. What I don't want to necessarily see is it become very political, whereby it's like, you know, which one do you prefer gets the opportunity to sit on that committee, as opposed to actually perhaps what is the fairest way and the right thing to do of making sure that whoever represents those areas actually sits on those plans.
Well, yeah, we can definitely clarify that and get that kind of outlined for us. And we'll just come back to you on that once we've got an answer. Okay, then the last item on there is number 11, which is the heritage issues. And you can see obviously the conservation area reviews that have kind of worked through so far. So Rodnisham Church Street, Rodnisham Green, Milstead and Tunstall. So the adopted versions of the conservation area appraisal documents are now published on the Swale Borough Council website. Adoption notifications to local residents and the parish council have been sent out. So that's our update there. Is there any comments or questions regarding that part? Okay. So that brings us to the end of our matters arising item. And so we'll move on then to agenda item 7, which is a public forum. So we've got any questions from our one member of the public? No? I don't think we've got anyone online, have we, as far as we know? Okay. Okay. You could do. Okay, agenda item 8. So that's local issues to be raised. So for members and our parish council representatives, if there's any issues you'd like to raise, just to interact, Councillor Hampshire.
I mean, going on the back of the discussion, say, about flooding in the area, I mean, look, we've all seen the impact that the upgrade to Junction 5 has had, particularly on the Western area, particularly on my ward and on Chestnut Street. There are going to be further works obviously done to that upgrade, and I think there needs to be a better approach in how the other slip roads perhaps are tackled as opposed to what went on before. Because I mean, it was a 4-month closure that ended up being sort of 5.5 months, and it's just been relentless, you know, for my residents. And even though now it's open every weekend because of what's going on the A249, they're still having an impact. That road is not designed for the volume of traffic that is going along it, and you know, despite best efforts, a contraflow isn't being put on the A249, you know, to try and alleviate it. I think though, we as a committee, we need to look at it. We need to see what we can do, because it is just not right, and actually it's not right for the whole of Sittingbourne, because it, you know, my residents in my ward might have to put up with all the constant streams of traffic going along it, but actually it's people from across the borough that are obviously trying to get to work or do whatever they're wanting to do that are being impacted by those works. It's just not right.
Councillor Palmer?
Yeah, and you're right. To add to that, there's a lot, particularly lorries, they ignore the diversion route. They go down in inappropriate country lanes. I know they've had it quite badly in Hartlip. We've had it quite badly in Newington. They come out onto the A2 by the Bull public house, and they can't turn there. They just, you know, it takes them several attempts. And quite often they're blocking the road, causing even greater traffic tailbacks. But I've raised it several times with the cabinet member of KCC. I know Councillor Baldock has, and the response tends to be, well, we put the diversion route in KCC, but it's up to the police to enforce it. But the police won't, because they don't see it as being a priority. But yet it causes misery to all the villagers, and we tend to get the flak for it, don't we? Thank you.
Thank you. I suppose from our point of view then, as a committee, in terms of an action that we can take, it would be writing to KCC, strongly worded letter to KCC, unless anyone has any other suggestions, really.
doesn't it also need to go to Highways England
And
that
police.
are promoting the
And
scheme,
yeah.
but also addressing the concerns that the official diversion route isn't being followed? I mean, how you can police that, I don't know, because it's not as if you can have a sticker that you can prove that, you know, well, I was meant to be travelling from here to here and I went this way. But I mean, certainly the volume of the traffic that's been used in the A2 is just not acceptable. And I think, you know, this is a major piece of work, complicated by the fact that a flyover is being put in, which I think ultimately is the right decision. But actually there needs to be better planning and thinking about how that flyover is actually constructed and put in, because currently what is going on is just not acceptable to everyone in Swale. It's not just the people that live directly along those diversion routes, and that it's actually people that are trying to get to work and the additional journey time that's in, you know, causing.
Okay, so if we say then to write to the KCC cabinet member, the Highways England and the police,
Yeah.
like kind of as a joint approach, Councillor Stevens?
This compounds the issue, and it's in your area as well. The Wisest Lane development, they are breaking their planning conditions, but the lorries are using all sorts of routes to get to the sites. So there's been a big thing on Facebook, and including someone walking in front of a lorry and blocking the road. So that's compounding all the other stuff that's increasing. So that's actually it's your one there as well.
If I can, but I mean, there have been numerous breaches occurring, and it's not just, you know, the vehicles accessing the site, not necessarily using the official diversion. That needs to be monitored, that needs to be policed. But I think there's a real issue recently that's come out from now what's going on in the planning department, and particularly the enforcement department, whereby people may write in and now effectively they're not going to get a response to their concerns. So effectively that comes across as if it's being ignored. And I don't think that's, you know, a good thing. And I struggle to see how the situation is going to improve with the budget that is being put forward by the current administration of this council, whereby they've been looking to reduce staffing hours. So if staff haven't got enough time to respond as things stand at the moment, well, how are they going to have enough time to respond when they're actually doing fewer hours? And I don't think that's in the best interests of our residents. But yet certainly, you know, if there are official diversions in place, then they need to be adhered to. And they need, the people responsible for ensuring that they're adhered to need to actually be doing that part of the job. And whether that be the police, whether that be enforcement officers of this council, then so be it. But also the developer needs to stop antagonising and inflaming the situation and making sure that the people that they are employing are actually abiding by the rules. And, you know, look, no one wanted to see that development. I voted against it. I didn't want to see it either. But it's got to now, I think, to a stage where I fear where it's going to end up, because relationships are broken down, I think, now on all sides. And I don't think all parties are coming across in a good light.
Thank you. And Janet?
If I may suggest, Chair, perhaps if the ward members could email me with the specific issues that are arising from the Junction 5 closures and diversions, and that could be included in a letter that you write, Chair.
Yeah, I think everyone would be happy to do that, wouldn't they?
You've got into the
Want pictures as well?
you know, they take pictures to
I don't see, to be honest, I don't see why we couldn't include any pictures to be with what we send. Don't see that being a problem. So if you have got them, send them over, Councillor Palmer. Okay, right. So if there's no more comments on that item, we'll move on then. So agenda item 9. I don't think we have. Well, we haven't got any matters that have been referred to us from the service committees. So item 10, is there anything that we would like to refer to service committees for consideration? Is there anything anyone would like to raise? Yes, and obviously that's kind of been referred and kind of come back. So I think that if there's nothing new from that one. Okay, brilliant. Well, this is the last area committee meeting of this electoral cycle. So dates for new meetings 2023-24 will be agreed at the annual council in May. So thank you very, very much for everyone's contributions.
Yeah, okay.
And yeah, close the meeting. Thank you.
Oh, my God, he is.
That doesn't have a-
I told you, I think you-